I have chosen Stan and Jan Berenstain for my author board presentation, and this is a couple that I've just enjoyed their books for a long time, and I wanted to do the research on them because I truly wanted to know more about them, and this gave me a reason to get to know them. So I was excited to do it. Stanley Berenstain and Janice Berenstain, they were actually both born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and lived there as a married couple and lived there until the time of their death. And it was just, they didn't stray far from home. They stayed close to home. They, over the years, published several titles. They started in 1962, and this was after they met, publishing and writing for a magazine and news articles for the Saturday Evening Post. And while they were there, they met and got married and decided to go into this series of Berenstain Bears books. And as they started this series in 1962, they began with The Big Honey Hunt, and they saw the success from that. So over the next 50 years, the series grew to include 250 titles that sold over 300 million, or nearly 300 million copies. So they have clearly had a lot of success. They're now published in, I think, 23 languages, English and Spanish included, and they, are just everywhere. So people everywhere are getting to enjoy these books and the lessons taught by these books. These books always teach a moral lesson. I don't think they necessarily started out with that intention, but they did grow to come to that. So they had a moral purpose. They had a teaching lesson in them. They taught kids all kinds of things, from about talking to strangers to being nice to their friends and kindness and loving each other and not being greedy and keeping their room clean. I mean, there's just no end to it. They actually were published by Random House. Most everything that they wrote was published by Random House. They tried to steer clear of the heavy issues like government and politics and teen pregnancy, things like that. They didn't get into the really heavy issues, but they just tried to stay close to home with the issues that were parents and children are dealing with every day in their homes. They in 2002 wrote an autobiography, Down a Sunny Dirt Road. But before that, in 1995, wrote a parenting book. They saw that there was a need for parents to know something that they had to learn the hard way. So they wrote a book called What Your Parents Never Told You About Being a Mom or Dad. Like I said, in their autobiography titled Down a Sunny Dirt Road, they just tell about their life. And I've not read either of these. I'd love to do that. I before the research didn't know that they had written those, so I'll be looking for those now. But they, I can only imagine now, knowing that their life is much like the Berenstain Bears. I don't know what their motivation was for writing about bears and in a tree house and why the books were aligned the way they were, but it seems to work well for them. They continue to sell books even now after their death. And so after Stan passed away in 2005 from cancer, Jan began writing with her son Mike. They have another son, Leo, but he didn't write with them. I've not found that he wrote any of the books with them. But she illustrated and wrote with Mike right up until the time of her death. A lot of what they wrote together after Mike's father passed away was a biblical-based Berenstain series that had scripture, included scripture, and then taught a lesson based on that scripture. And it's easy for kids to digest because they get it, because the Bears lived it. So those are really fun to read, and we have a collection of those. There's several of them, and and then of course there's always Mother's Day, and just anything you can imagine. There's a book in the series for it. So if you want to ask a question, just ask the Berenstains, and the Bears can live it out for you. But the references I used for this project were Wikipedia, HarperCollins, Scholastic.com, and the Washington Post. Like I said, I found a lot of good research and a lot of good information I didn't know about them, and it was nice to get to see them, their picture, and see what they look like. And I showed my son, these are the ones that wrote the books we love, and he would read one of these books at bedtime every night. He loves them. They're just, the research lists them as a beloved Berenstain Bears series. So they just really were successful. They let their hearts be poured into these books, and they're a lot of fun. I can only imagine that they're a fun couple as well. And so, the world of children's literature, I'm sure, hated to lose them, but they were certainly fun to find and get to know.